Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us at TribeHerald, Dr. Koach Frazier.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited about this.
So, this here at TribeHerald, we're all about starting new Torah initiatives and starting new Torah education. And I figured this was a perfect time, starting off Sefer Shemot, new book of the Torah and everything. So why don't you, I guess, introduce yourself a little bit and talk a little bit about, which denomination of Judaism you identify most with, and a little bit about your background before we get into the Parshat.
Yeah, so I'm Koach or KB Frazier. I use they and he pronouns. I am piped in from Lenni Lenape land in Southwest Philadelphia, where I'm a rabbinical student at the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College here in the Philadelphia area. So I'm a Reconstructionist and a self-loving Reconstructionist who really and yeah, I'm arrived from the Midwest, and that's where I spent a lot of my time growing up, and also kind of my formation as an activist, and I'm a lover of Torah. So that's a little bit about me.
So in this week's Parsha, we're starting the story of Jews entering exile in Egypt. What are some themes that jump out to you about this week's Parsha right off the top?
Right off the top, I mean, just like thinking about the name, Shemot, we get the names of the sons of Yaakov, but also in this portion, God names themselves. Like God says who God is, and that's something that we've noticed before, that either God is has the name of El Shaddai or Elohim or Yud-Hey Vav-Hey, but here when Moshe asked God, what will I say to the people, like who you are? What's your name? And God says, Ehiyah Asher Ehiyah. Like this is a new formation, it seems to me, of God. But it's awesome, particularly as a trans person, that God, of all the names that we've already been introduced to, that God says, no, this is my name. And I love the way in which God introduces God's self in that way.
Now, that idea, like you said, as a trans person, that idea of revealing oneself through one's name is, often gives an insight into the essence of that person or an essence of that being, not good person, God forbid.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see, like over and over and over again, God says, I will be with you. And Moshe was like, I don't know whether or not you got the right person here. I don't know if it's clear that I'm supposed to be the one to go. And God says, no, I will be with you. It says, Ehiyeh imcha, I believe. And then later on, when Moshe talks about how, I'm like, my speech is slow, my tongue doesn't work right. And God says, I will be with your mouth, right? So we're getting this essence of God of I will be with you, right? And then, when we get this name of Ehiyah Asher Ehiyah, it's like, yeah, I feel like we are getting this nature of God that we not necessarily have experienced before, right? God and the people are both growing up. Like I've helped establish this Black Trans Torah Club, and so we've been going through each parsha every week, and starting with Bereshit. And as we've been kind of encountering these texts as a group together, what we've talked about is how both God and the people are really growing up together, trying to figure out what to do. And so God does this great creation and creates these people in the world. And then the people are starting to do things that God is not pleased with. So God destroys all of the earth. And so we see how God and the people trying to figure out what do we do with each other? And how do we live? How do we actually kind of be together in this ecosystem of this world together? And so, God has been kind of trying to figure it out, destroying things we see with the flood. But then also after the flood, God distributes all the people with the, after the Tower of Babel. And like, okay, well, y'all clearly are out to get me, so I got to spread you out everywhere. And then like Abraham has to like plead with God, don't destroy this town just because these people are like evil. And God does it anyway. So like we see that the nature of God and the nature of people are being explored through these stories. And as God gives God's name and I believe like gives over this notion of like, I want to be with y'all. I actually, even God remembers, like I remember that I actually have a covenant with y'all. Like this is a different nature to me. It felt like if there was a difference happening here.
Now it sounds like this is more of an aspect of chesed, of kindness, of rachamim, or of mercy. I'll be with you. I'm always there for you. Essentially, I love you. But while all of that's going on, the Jews are going into exile. Like while all of this is happening and the relationship is getting built, there's also that negative aspect too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like it sounds like we're being set up for that, right? Because God tells Moshe, you gotta go and be with these people, with your people, right? Reminding Moshe that you are you are Ephraim, right? And because Moshe didn't have that experience growing up, Moshe was actually in the palace with Pharaoh, and so like there was this reminder that yes, your people are having problems, right? And I'm sending you to go and get them out, to draw them out, right? Just as Moshe's name is based off of the root to draw out, that Moshe has to go and draw out the people from this oppression. But God in God's telling of this story says, I'm gonna harden Pharaoh's heart, right? And so it doesn't matter all of these things that I'm telling you you're going to do. You're going to go and get the people. You're going to use all these signs and wonders. That I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart. And actually, through this, through what's going to happen in exile, right, is that the people are going to they're going to be subjugated to even more oppression because of this hardening of the heart. And I'm going to kill the firstborn, right? Like Moshe even gets the setup. Like, this is what's gonna happen, bruh. And you got to go in there. You got to go in there and get these folks, right? And so we are getting set up for that like penultimate moment of being brought out or drawn out of Egypt. But like we got to get there. Like we haven't made it there yet, and that's what I love about the Parsha each week, is that we kind of get a glimpse of each next nugget of the story. So that we are experiencing it almost in real time, exactly how the sages tell us we're to do on Pesach, right? It's like we're supposed to act as if we were there. So like that's what I'm trying to do in this moment. It's like I'm right there. I'm there. Like I was there when we were talking about how like even this notion of Yocheved sending the baby down into the Nile and hoping to God that this baby was saved, right? Because like we knew that like we need Moshe. Like what do we do? Like what if an alligator like comes in and eats the baby in the basket? What do we do? Right? So like we're being set up, and I like to stay in the setup right now. Like yes, we are going to exile. The people are going to after after the oppression that's going to happen, we know that they're going to be in the wilderness for a time. But I love being in this moment of this. We negotiating with God. This is another part that I really loved about this story. Moses is at the bush, right? And God is like, yo, this is what you finna do. And Moses is like, yeah, no, that's not what I'm supposed to do at all, right? And then like goes even further. It's like, nah, my mouth don't work right. And what Moshe did was like again, the people are growing up just alongside of God, and he was able to ask for help. And guess what? God said, you know what? You got your brother. Go down there and meet your brother Aaron, and y'all will work together, right? And this notion of like, I will not send you by yourself. This is this rachamim, like you talked about, this compassion of God to say, things are hard. I realize that you feel like you're not adequate, even though I know you are, but I'm going to send help. And all of these things are like ways in which we can lean into our ability to call for help when we need help, right? So we say, I'm feeling like, not that I'm necessarily inadequate, but I don't feel like I can do this by myself, which I don't know that there's anything that we have to really do by ourselves. Like, we are communal people, and part of our ways of being with each other is to be there in times of good and bad and in between. And so to call out for our help and say, I need somebody to be with me, and know that the universe, God, our community will come through and help us.
I mean, ultimately, that was like Moshe Rabbeinu. That was like Moses saying, he's disabled. I have a speech problem. I can't do this. And what did God do? Moses said, I'm slow of lips and tongue. God gives him a name that doesn't even involve the lips or tongue. Keshet, like it's all, breath coming out. Like I feel like there's a message here for disability awareness, for disability.
Absolutely.
In the story.
Yes, that we can call forth, like, we know what our abilities are, and we also know what we don't have the ability to do, and that we can do these things in partnership. I think that's the beauty of it. Like, we're not left by ourselves. We can call for what we need. And it was at the direction of Moshe that he got the help, right? It's not that God was going to send help in a particular way. Like, oh, well, I'm going to send you with a wheelchair. Well, Moshe didn't need a wheelchair, right? So, like, we have to actually listen to what people are saying when they say, this is the help or the assistance I need, and come through with that. To not like imagine or suppose for somebody what their condition is, to allow them to state it and to say, this is what I need, and to actually support that.
Well, that's essentially how God responds to Moses, by giving him exactly what he needed, whether it was an interpreter,
that's right,
or a name he could say, or a plan of action. That idea of the tailored rachamim to every person in every situation.
Absolutely, yes.
And not forgetting that while all of this is happening, there's a lot of gender issues going on in Egypt at the time. You have to kill the boys, let the daughters survive, put the boy in the river. Like, that seems like a very, binary type of thing. Like, the boys go here and the girls go there. How can we learn from that today?
Well, I think that
from a trans perspective or
it's interesting that comes off the. Say again.
Either from a trans perspective or a non-binary perspective, knowing that we know so much today.
Well, I think that it's interesting that this comes off the heels of the story of probably one of the queerest people in Torah, which is Yosef, right? Like, we have Yosef, this kind of like queer, gender-bending person who has actually set us all up to be in Egypt, right? Like, Yosef is the one who brought the family, back to Egypt in order for this story to kind of culminate. And so I don't know what to say about in terms of like how outside of like this is how people know how babies are made, right? Like you have somebody, you have like the boy and the girl get together, right, and make this baby. Like, under that concept, yes, I mean, that's exactly what's happening. But I do think it is interesting that one of the queerest people that we can find in Torah is the actual setup for what this Egypt story is going to look like. And it actually plays a part in it, even like till the end, like as they were going out. Like, he went right before he died, he said, make sure my bones, right, come back home. And Moshe makes sure that happens, right? So, like, he doesn't leave our story. So I'll just say that, like, our like transcestor Yosef is still around, despite the binaries that we see within this particular parsha. Yosef's hanging out. And we'll continue to find him through the story.
Oh, Yosef Chai, Yosef is still alive.
Yes, and I think that one of the things that my rabbi back home, excuse me, Rabbi Susan Talby did is that that there's the blessing for the little boys, right, on Shabbos. They would say, bless you that you would be like Ephraim and Manasseh, right? And she would always bless us queer ones, that we would be like Yosef, that we would be, you know, this divine, beautiful person, like who is able to see, like is a dreamer, who's able to see what might happen and be able to take charge and be able to make the moves and so that people might live, right? Like that is what I remember from back home. And I love that. And I feel that in my bones, right? That there's this deep connection to Yosef as a trans person.
And now, you know, Shemot also gives us the quintessential evil character at this point is Paro. He's the one whose directives are causing all of the oppression, or causing all of the stress for the Jews. And it's ultimately his family that has to suffer in the plague of the firstborn eventually. What do you think that we can learn from Paro from these parshas?
You know, we were talking about like this notion of sometimes we actually do need, whether it's the character itself, like a person outside of ourselves or the person inside of us, this hardening to protect ourselves when we are under threat, right? So Pyro felt like he was threatened. And it makes sense to me that he would be like, nah, but you ain't coming up in here and taking the people who build in my beautiful, you know, like palaces or whatever. And so yeah, so you build up this shell around you. And sometimes maybe that is a divine thing, right? Like, so Hashem is the one who, we're told, hardens Pharaoh's heart. And actually the word is, I think it's et chazak, like strengthens, like, and it becomes hardened, but like strengthens his heart, like makes him even more firm in what he believes. And I believe that sometimes we need that. We need to be firm and like stand for something. You know, like we stand for something or we fall for anything, right? So we got to stand for something, stand in what we believe. And I think that is important. But we also see that that Bat Paro, right, that becomes Batya, like also stands in her knowing of who she is and how she wants to be in the world. And I think that we can learn from both of them in that way, that, you know, sometimes you're going to clash. So like she was firm in her belief that she was not going to kill, you know, like not take the boy and you know, kill him or like do away with him, but to raise him, right? And so I think that we can learn from both of those things, that we can stand firm in who we are and protect ourselves. I think that's important. We should not lose that. We should have something within us that does like have some self-preservation, that doesn't believe that just because, you know, somebody coming in here telling me that they God told them to come and you know, take over my land, take over my power. Everybody's not to be believed in that way. So I think that there is something about protection of self that is good to have.
And if Paro can use it for evil purposes, then all the more so should we be able to use it for good purposes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can see that now in this moment, right? In this moment that we are living through our own plague. We're living through this disease that's ravaging people across this world. And people are like, I'm going to do whatever I want. That we need people who are like firm in the belief of like humanity, that people are worth, you know, precautions so that people will live, that we take it upon ourselves, not to harden ourselves, but that to protect ourselves. And in that way, I guess the hardening is the protection, that we protect ourselves, and not just because we want to protect us, but because we want to protect the people around us. And so we take measures that help us stand firm in our beliefs and values of life.
Right. If there's one thing that also is you know, a common theme through these parshas, it's that idea of the Jewish community, of Klal Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael, the one group of people that was affected by this decree, who would eventually be the one group of people who were allowed to go and talk to God at the mountain, and then eventually would start the whole, you know, plague process. But everyone's talking about us. There's no real me there. Everyone's talking about us, unity, and everyone's kind of looking out for each other.
That's right. That's right. And you see that even with Moshe, when he first like leaves the palace, right? He goes out and he sees the harsh treatment of the Hebrews, and he's like, nah, we can't allow this to happen. And he actually took a life. Like in his mind, he was taking a life in order to save lives of the people who were there, right? And so yes, like this is about us. How are we like doing all that we can to protect each other, to keep us safe, to keep us alive, so that we can live on, right? Like, you know, this notion of like I'm all out for me is not something that originates in Torah. This is something that we've like been introduced to, and I think that it's like to our detriment that we fall in line to that.
And that's something that we can, you know, that we can learn from these pashas, you know, because when there's negative affecting the community, everyone's all looking out for each other. When there's positive affecting somebody in the community, when you put a little bit of silver on a window, it turns into a mirror. Like it's all about me when it's positive. But like Moses will say later, you'll eventually say that my hand and my strength made all of this. You know, but when it's negative, everyone's watching out for each other.
Yeah.
That's, you know, an unfortunate reality. Now, as these pashas go on, eventually we're getting closer to receiving the Torah. This is kind of our crucible that we're going through, like I guess the process of becoming a nation. Do you think that there's, do you see any, I guess, glimpses of where this is going, of Klal Yisrael's ultimate destiny, starting from these, you know, humble points here?
Well, I think when you see in this portion this week that God says this is actually going to be your sign, like at the mountain. It's like you're going to come back to this mountain, and this is where you're going to serve me. This is where you know you'll come back here, and this is how you'll know that I was telling you the truth. That this is exactly what you were supposed to be doing. And so I think that yes, we get the sign of where we will, you know, at Sinai, like that God meets Moshe there in the beginning to say, come back here. And this is where you're going to get all that you need to know, right? And so, yeah, we get the glimpses of that here in this portion. And we get the glimpses of a person meeting God at that mountain, unsure of what's going to happen. And the people are going to return with that same kind of energy, like, we don't know what's gonna happen. Why you bring us here? Weren't we better off with the Egyptians? At least they fed us.
Right, right. For 3 books of the Torah, we're gonna hear that.
Right. So you get these people who are unsure, and that makes sense to me. Like you got Moshe, who's like, I'm standing here, I'm just minding my business. All of a sudden, I see this thing on fire. What is going on? And you know the people are going to experience that again, like at Mount Sinai. They're going to be like all this like signs and wonders happening in the sky, right? Like it's going to be thunder and lightning and all this other stuff that's happening. You know, while the people are down there, like, what is going on? What are we supposed to do? And so, yes, I think that we in this glimpse in this portion, we are going to see exactly what's going to happen with the people, but we get it with Moshe first.
And I guess before we, one last question, you know, little last topic. We just came out of Hanukkah right now. This month of Tevis is fast days going on. We're about to come to Tu B'Shvat. This idea of winter and renewal is about to be coming in. Do you have any, I guess, blessings for the trans community or the LGBT community as we come into this season of Parshat?
I would say that, say again?
To end on a nice bracha.
Yeah. I would say that I bless us with the ability to name ourselves, to call forth the essence of who we are, and to know that there is a community who is here that will accept and surround us with love, and to be there in those moments of when we say what we need, that we will get the support that we need. So that's what I would bless us with.
Amen. Thank you for joining us this week. And remember, we'll be back next week.
All right.